This is Agriculture Today, and I'm Shelby Varner with the K-State Radio Network. K-State weed scientist Jeremie Kouame kicks off today's show by discussing how to prevent and control field bindweed. He explains how to handle the weed if it is found in fields. Recognizing the Kansas FFA stars Andrew Garman, Noah Wiley, and Adelle Higbie is how today's show continues. Each member shares the work they completed to receive their respective honors. Raymond Cloyd, K-State horticultural entomologist, ends the show with an update on several insect pests to be on the lookout for this time of year, including bagworms and a variety of beetles. That and more is coming up ahead on Agriculture Today. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we start our Thursday show talking about field bindweed. And to talk about it, we're joined by K-State weed scientist Jeremie Kouame. Jeremie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Shelby, for having me. Glad to be here.
Jeremie, field bindweed, something that a lot of people in Kansas are dealing with, but how did it end up in Kansas?
The first time this weed was reported in Kansas was in 1877. And so it was probably brought to the state through infested wheat seeds. And so it was brought from the Ukrainian region of Russia.
Why is this weed something so hard to control?
It's a perennial vine from the morning glory family. And so a little bit of background again, some previous research conducted here at Hayes showed that, this weed can induce crop yields up to 50% for cereal crops, but even up to 80% for row crops. And so why is it so hard to control? The things we need to understand is the seed, for example, can stay up to 50 years in the soil seed bank. So right now, it's the period of the heaviest bloom, which goes between May 15 and June 15. And this is followed by the time of maturity of the seeds that goes between June 15 and July 15. And again, when those seeds go back to the soil seed bank, it becomes really hard to get rid of those. And the seeds that are near the soil surface, they will germinate and start growing. And when they grow, they produce this taproot in a rapid way. And this taproot can go up to 30 feet in the soil. And then 6 weeks after emergence, it starts developing those lateral roots. And the lateral roots produce some buds, which produce some shoots. And when they reach the soil surface, they, produce new plants. Then we have the mother plants, and we have daughter plants that are, coming up, at some distance from the mother plants. And again, we have this important roots system for field bindweed. So it allocates a huge amount of carbohydrates in those roots, which are a source of energy for both, the above ground aspect, but also the below ground part of the weed. And it's really hard to control because those roots are going to propagate the weed. So that's why it's really hard to get rid of it once it's established. So.
How is that seed dispersed?
Oh, that's a great question. So there are many ways the seed can be dispersed. For example, when harvesting our crop, if there are some vines that, get entangled with our machinery, our combine, it's going to spread the seeds. And it can also be moved with, water, for example. And if some livestock are fed with hay or grain, which is infested with bindweed, it's going to come out of them undigested. And so it can, if we spread the manure, which is contaminated with field bindweed seeds, we can spread it. So these are all, ways the weed can be spread.
So how might people want to prevent that weed from getting spread around?
That's a great question. And that's one reason why we need to understand how this weed, works. And so a good way of preventing, and I'm going to start by saying, the best management is to stay ahead of its spread. because once it's spread, it becomes perennial, it gets really hard to control. So prevention then is really critical. So we will recommend a careful inspection, for example, of crop seeds to remove any bindweed seed in there. We'll recommend a thorough cleaning of harvesting, tillage, and other machinery before, when they move from one area which is infested, before going in an area which is not infested, we need to make sure that we are not transporting seeds or vines of field bindweed. And when infestation is starting at a location, whenever we see it, it's better to control it as soon as possible. And we want to make sure that our field borders, for example, they don't have field bindweed infestation, because any infestation in the field borders, the lateral roots, again, are going to grow and get to the field. In addition to that, the seeds produced are going also to contaminate our field. So we don't want to have our field border infested. And all these means need to be combined so we reduce field bindweed infestation.
If this unfortunately has made it into a producer's field, how might they be able to control it?
There are many ways to control bindweed. So something I'm going to highlight that can help at some point, when soil moisture allows it, is basically field bindweed has been, research has shown that it requires a huge amount of light. So, and research showed that when there is a decrease in light intensity, the production of seeds is reduced, and also the production of rhizomes is reduced. So when we have tall competitive crops, and when we have early canopy closure, field bindweed is, we have a good suppression of this weed. And so when our moisture content allows us to plant in a narrow row spacing, it can help, having competitive crops going to help us keep it suppressed. In addition to that, we have chemical control options, but it's critical to keep in mind that a single application of a herbicide will rarely control field bindweed when it's already established, right? And that's why it takes multiple applications of herbicide over multiple years to get it under control. And so because we have this deep rooting system, we want the herbicide to move to those rooting systems in order to control it, what we call translocation of the herbicide. So, and the systemic herbicides that are most commonly used are glyphosate, and we have also these WSSA group 4 herbicides, basically what we call 2,4-D, dicamba, we have picloram, and also quinclorac or paramount. So these chemistries or chemicals have been the most commonly used to control bindweed. And so, again, when we start seeing seedlings, we need to control these as soon as possible, because when they reach 6 week old, they start establishing this perennial growth system, and so it becomes harder to control. So it's better to control them before they reach this stage. And tillage is a great tool to combine with herbicides. And so it's a common way of destroying the top growth of a weed. And it's most effective when sweep type tillage is used, to cut the shoot from the root, like about 4 or 5 inches, under the soil surface. And in the Great Plains, the common practice has been to, use tillage every 3 weeks, And the good thing about this is the repeated use of tillage, not only it depletes the carbohydrates stored in the rooting system, but also by simulating dormant seeds to come back to the surface and germinate, we can, reduce the population in a good way. And another important aspect to mention is, the efficacy of how our herbicides is affected not only by the timing of tillage, but also by the vigor of the plants. And so previous research showed that, for example, when using 2,4-D, glyphosate dicamba, when the plant had a good vigor if we delayed tillage 1, 3, 7 days, they achieved an excellent control, right? But when the vigor of the plant was fair, so the maximum control that could be achieved was about 70%, right? Despite delaying tillage to 3, 7 days. But then when the plants were not growing well and had a poor vigor, only the mixture of pichloram and 2,4-D was able to achieve a good control. So the timing of tillage and also the vigor of the plant can impact the efficacy of, control of field bindweed. So,
Jeremie, I appreciate you taking the time to join us today and share with us some information about field bindweed.
Thank you very much, Shelby. I was glad to be here.
That was Kansas State University weed scientist Jeremie Kouame. If you'd like to read more about field bindweed, there are a couple of ways you can do so. The first one is checking out the Agronomy e-update from May 24th and reading the article World of Weeds Field Bindweed. There's also an Agronomy e-update from this past week, June 6th, and that article is titled Management Options for Control of Field Bindweed. I will link both of these articles in today's show notes on agtoday.net. And just as a reminder, you can find other Agronomy e-update articles or get signed up to receive these weekly e-newsletters by going to eupdate.agronomy.ksu.edu. Again, that is eupdate.agronomy.ksu.edu. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but when we come back, we'll be joined by 3 Kansas FFA members who are the stars in Kansas. You're tuned in to Agriculture Today, and we continue our Thursday show talking with Kansas FFA members who were named the Star in Agribusiness, the Star in Ag Placement, and the State Star Farmer. We began our conversation with Andrew Garman, who is an FFA member in Pike Valley and was the recipient of the Star in Agribusiness. Andrew, can you tell us what led you to this award?
I started my SAE Garman Industrial and then have been going on it for about 3 years, and then basically just filled out the paperwork for the STAR application, made it through won districts, and then was able to win the state.
And what did you do within your SAE?
Garman Industrial is an ag manufacturing and ag welding and repair business, so started out doing some more of the custom fabrication and repair work, building custom things, racks, shelves, tables, really anything. The sky's the limit on the custom side. And then also ag repairs, so equipment and irrigation equipment and different things like that. And then now transitioning towards ag manufacturing, so developing and manufacturing the implements themselves.
How did you go about learning how to do all this?
Started as a hobby. It seems like every hobby I do starts or turns into a business. So I started a couple years ago, back when we first built our shop at the farm. Kind of just bought my first equipment. Started as a hobby because I'd seen it on YouTube and stuff. And YouTube is primarily how I've learned the technical parts of the skills other than trial and error. So learning how to do the basic processes and stuff through YouTube videos. But then, like I mentioned a second ago, lots of trial and error. And then just progression over time through building skills and then building my capabilities through machines and equipment.
What has been one of those skills that's really taken a lot of time to learn and get close to perfecting?
CNC plasma machining would definitely have to be the top. It's also been my most influential and beneficial skills the way I've structured my business and what I do. CNC is and computer numerical control. So basically it's a computerized robot, to put it simply, that cuts out parts and stuff I design. So I go through and design it on a CAD program, which is computer automated design, and then put it through a CAM program, which is computer automated manufacturing, which creates a program that said CNC cutter cuts out of metal, and I use it for signs, custom parts, for repair work, and then custom fabrication, but then also manufactured components for implements I currently build.
What has been one of your favorite projects you've completed?
Definitely, it's I guess you could say it's more of a category of projects, but the skid steer attachments I've developed and then sold around the state so far, and then plan to grow to a national level. But that group, it's all of the designs that I've done or have created have definitely, I look at overview of like a biosphere. I take an overview of all the biospheres, and then I take a point from this one, I take a point from this one, and I add them all together, and then I just create the best one I could see on the market. So that would definitely be those are my favorite things to work on, and what I see becoming more pertinent in the future. So,
Andrew, what are you hoping to see in your future?
I've told people this before, but Garman Industrial is a stepping stone, is the figure of speech I like to use, for a future robotic system that I'm working on that I can't talk about because working with patent lawyers and stuff on that. But this is funding the research and engineering behind that currently. But then also Garman Industrial will be kind of a standalone, obviously ag manufacturing company, but then the future company, Garman Automation, through that robotic automation system will hopefully be global and be used all over the world for heavy industry. So.
That was Pike Valley FFA member Andrew Garman, who is this year's Kansas FFA Star in Agribusiness. We're now going to be joined by Labette County FFA member Noah Wiley, who is this year's Star in Ag Placement Award winner. Noah, can you tell us the work you did for your Star in Ag Placement Award with Fraser Farms?
Yep, as you said, I work for Fraser Farms, and I assist in the production of 2,000 acres of corn, wheat, and soybeans. Some of my duties include maintenance of equipment, tillage, and final seedbed preparation, planting, harvesting, scouting crops, and then operating the highly sophisticated computer systems that are in our tractors as well as our combine.
How did you get started working there then, Noah?
My SAE began whenever I was quite young. My dad is an ag teacher. He happens to be my ag teacher, and he works for Fraser Farms on the side. I began picking up rocks and roots as a little kid, and Mr. Fraser, he noticed my work ethic, and he put me on the payroll, and over the years I've climbed the ladder, and now I'm his top hand. So I went from picking up rocks and roots and just kind of being a grunt work sort of a man. Now he trusts me to operate very expensive machinery and trusts me fully.
What has been some of your favorite machinery you've gotten to work with or hope to work with in the future?
Running the combine would be my favorite thing to do. It's a lot of fun. That is until it breaks down. But I really do enjoy being able to operate the combine because I enjoy harvesting a crop and seeing all the work that we've put in over the year and being able to harvest that crop and reap what we've sown.
Noah, you mentioned that you started off just by picking up rocks and have worked your way up to running that large machinery. And what was it like building the trust with the owner of Fraser Farms?
Over the years, obviously, I had to work very hard to gain Mr. Fraser's trust. But after a while of picking up rocks and roots and kind of running tools and doing various maintenance, Mr. Fraser noticed that I did a good job at everything that I was doing, and I was very trustworthy. So he started out by putting me in the grain cart during harvest, and he saw that I did a good job there, and eventually he moved it to where I started working ground with the quad track and the field cultivator, and so on and so forth. Then he started trusting me to plant and operate the combine, and now we're where we are today. Over the time, I've just built a very good, strong trust with him and my abilities, and that I'll always do the best job that I can.
Noah, what does the future look like for you?
I currently attend Coffeyville Community College, and I will spend this next year there, and I plan to transfer to Kansas State University and get a degree in agricultural economics. After that, I plan to move back to the southeast Kansas area where I would like to pursue a career in ag lending, and then if life allows me, I'd like to take over and start my own farm.
Once again, that was Labette County FFA member and Star in Ag Placement Award winner Noah Wiley. We're now going to be joined by the Kansas FFA State Star farmer who's from West Franklin, Adelle Higbie. Adelle, what work have you done to receive this State Star Farmer Award?
So to apply for the State Star Farmer Award, I had to comprise my programs of beef production and goat production into what's called a Star Battery, which is a record of all the work that I've done in both of those programs in terms of management, leadership, community outreach, and all aspects of both of those programs. And with that, I took that to the district level and became the representative of the East Central District. And then I moved on to the state level where I interviewed for the award and discussed with a panel of judges about my program. And then I came on stage and I was given the amazing honor of the State Star Farmer Award.
Adelle, you mentioned a meat goat herd, and what does that herd look like?
So on the meat goat side, I began when I was about 6 years old. I asked my parents for a pony, and instead they brought home 2 meat goats. And I always say that it didn't make very much sense because I can't exactly put a saddle on a meat goat. But that turned into, from those 2 head, now I have over 30 head of meat goats on my farm, and I take care of all the management practices, which includes nutritional examination of their needs, selecting breeding livestock that I want to incorporate into my genetic program, and even having my own farm sale where I advertise and sell my meat goats to other FFA members, and I enjoy being a leader to those who are starting their own programs, and I enjoy helping them to build up their programs as well.
And what's the story on the cattle herd?
So my Polled Hereford cattle began when I was 10 years old, and I was looking to expand my program into another species. And my family members had been raising Simmental cattle for many generations, but I wanted to go a different route, so I looked in the magazine of all the breeds, and I thought the red and white ones looked very beautiful. And I will tell you that they are absolutely gorgeous every morning when I drive by. They look stunning on the green grass every day. And so now I have a herd of about 10 head of Polled Hereford cattle, and they're kind of my fun project. And I take care of similar management practices with them, and I really enjoy that project a lot.
So how have you personally grown between taking care of a meat goat herd and a cattle herd, but then also being involved with FFA?
It definitely keeps me pretty busy being involved in my programs and then also being involved as an FFA member. At our school's FFA program, we do lots of community service activities. That includes a chili supper that we put on each year for the community members, hosting a community garden where we sell vegetables to community members, and having our own FFA auction. And so that keeps me pretty busy. I was the president of our FFA chapter and of the East Central District this past year. So I had the honor of getting organized events like Green Hand Conference and District Banquet, and getting to organize all that kept me very busy, but I was so honored to get to be a part of that. And then managing my programs at the same time helped me to gain those leadership and hard work skills. What does the future look like for yourself and your livestock herd? This fall, I'll be attending the University of Kansas to pursue pre-optometry through a major in biochemistry and a minor in Spanish language, and I'll be admitted to the honors program as well. I'll be close to home, so that means I can continue operating both my goat herd and my Polled Hereford cattle herd, and I'm excited to do that and to continue connecting with younger FFA members who are just starting their amazing journey, and I can't wait to help them as they grow with those opportunities. I plan to continue doing that in the future, and I hope that by expanding myself into a career that's not directly agriculture related, I can kind of grow our agriculture family and share that outreach for new opportunities to other people who don't know about ag yet. Once again, that was Kansas FFA State Star Farmer Award recipient from West Franklin FFA, Adelle Higbie. And she was joined by the Star in Ag Placement recipient, Noah Wiley, and the Star in Agribusiness Award recipient, Andrew Garman. We're cutting to a short break now on Agriculture Today, but stick around because we have more for you ahead.
This is Agriculture Today. Along with Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. For this week's horticulture segment, K-State horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd has an update on summer insect pests that we need to be on the lookout for, including bagworms and a variety of beetles, especially Japanese beetle adults. Raymond, first off, maybe just an update on what we're seeing in terms of bagworms.
Yeah, Jeff, this is the time of year to be looking for those 1/8 to 1/4 inch bags on your thuya and all sorts of trees and shrubs out there, and spraying with one of two products, either BTK, which is called Bacillus thuringiensis kirstaki, which is a bacterium that only kills caterpillars, or spinosad. These are the active ingredients in a number of products. These are stomach poisons, and when applied this time of year, they're very effective in killing the small caterpillars. If you wait till they get over 1/2 inch or close to 1 inch, you can't use these. So this is the time of year to be out there looking for those bags. And if you see them spray, you may have to make more than one application because of the fact that bagworms will balloon. That is, they'll form a strand and get caught in wind currents, land in your plants and start feeding. So just right now, be really diligent about going out there, looking at your thuyas, conifers, crabapples, other plants that you know have been fed upon by bagworms in the past, and make those treatments to reduce the damage caused by the bagworms feeding.
Are we seeing anything with Japanese beetles?
It's getting close. The Japanese beetle adults should be emerging, depending on the location, but it's something to be cognizant about because once Japanese beetles start emerging and feeding, it's very difficult to deal with them. Once they feed into a plant, especially a rose, the plant gives off odors that attracts more Japanese beetles. So as much as you can do proactively is going to reduce problems. Unfortunately, most of the sprays we have are very non-selective, so they kill everything, including pollinators and bees. Carbaryl, which used to be the active ingredient in 7, is being phased out. In fact, if you go to a garden store or nursery, you'll see that the active ingredient carbaryl is no longer in most of the formulated 7 products. It's lambda-cyhalothrin, gamma-cyhalothrin, bifenthrin. These are pyrethroids. Now, they will still kill Japanese beetle adults, but they will also kill beneficial insects, pollinators, and butterflies. So you have to be very diligent about using these products when you're trying to protect your plants from Japanese beetle adult feeding damage.
And there really are a number of beetles that we need to be concerned with.
Yeah, in the vegetable garden right now, making some observations in the community garden in Manhattan, Colorado potato beetle, late instar larvae. The orange ones are feeding on potato leaves. We've got common asparagus beetle larvae feeding on the fronds of asparagus. And then we've got bee leaf beetle feeding on beans. That's if you ever go out and your beans have got holes in them, that's caused by the adult bean leaf beetle. We also have some caterpillars, cabbage looper, imported cabbage worm feeding on kale, lettuce, anything in the cole crops, brassicas, things like that. They're out right now feeding. And so when they're young and when the populations are small, this is time to get out there with some of the common insecticides. If you don't know what to use, contact your extension office or the Department of Entomology at Kansas State, and we'll provide you recommendations. Again, BTK, which I mentioned for bagworms, would work on cabbage looper and imported cabbage worm and some of the other caterpillar pests. And there's a whole slew of other materials that are out there that you could use for Colorado potato beetle, bean leaf beetle, and asparagus beetle.
Anything else that you're seeing that we might want to take note of right now?
We do have our newsletter coming out weekly or biweekly, depending on who writes for it. But as we get into June, July, and the temperatures get hotter, then 2-spotted spider mites are going to be problematic on tomatoes and burning bush and roses, things like that. So just be on the lookout for that. On roses and some of your hardwoods, we recommend a high-pressure water spray. Just dislodge them, okay, as opposed to spraying your plants and maybe running into some phytotoxicity. But 2-spotted spider mites, as the weather warms up, gets in the 80s and 90s and dry, is one of the mites to be concerned about. Whiteflies may be a problem, but really it's spider mites. The Japanese beetles, which we mentioned, are going to be prevalent probably from June, July, August, depending on what type of temperatures and moisture levels we get to.
You've been working on a publication about mosquitoes, and that publication is ready for publication.
Absolutely, Jeff. It's called Mosquitoes in Kansas. It's been updated, and it is available right now online at the bookstore, and you can download it, read it. It's got lots of good information about mosquitoes. Again, we talk about source reduction. We talk about using larvicides and using repellents.
That's K-State horticultural entomologist Raymond Cloyd with an update on potential summer insect pests in the home garden and landscape. And that'll do it for this edition of Agriculture Today. For Shelby Varner, I'm Jeff Wickman. This is the K-State Radio Network.